important topic in general, and I think in particular in regard to climate change, which is sort of a technocratic endeavor. At times, I think the voices of people who are driving the technocratic ship, if you follow anthropology, get lost sometimes. And I think that there are sort of really pragmatic reasons for someone who's a scientist, interested in science, to be interested, for example, the percentage of land managed by the tribes is quite large, and for geographical and ethnographic diversity in terms of analysis of change in the environment would necessitate working with tribes. I also think the tribes have really important stories to tell for themselves, really important observations. I started the project with the assumption that tribes would have a lot to bring to the table in terms of ecological knowledge that may help us understand climate change better, and also from an environmental justice standpoint, their voices really need to be heard. So assumptions that I had moving forward this work in NSF today. So I'm going to change in rural Nevada. I'll be talking about the integration of multiple methods and Native Americans, and also to some degree I'll talk about ranchers and farmers, because I contrast the data between these two rural neighbors. You can address on screen here, and you can on screen, and you can also see it on the last slide as well. So I think it's important to define what the talk is about and what it's not going to focus on. I was to sort of talk about the integration of research and education and climate change with work within, not to present all the results, all the findings of our last 5 years of research was funded by the Science Foundation. So some data, but I'm not going to drown you in data. And I will present the findings, but this discussion is not necessarily just about the findings. A lot of that will be found in papers which are either or being reviewed at this time. So there should be quite a bit out regarding in the next 6 to 9 months. So just we'll talk about the physiography of Nevada and climate change in the state in just a couple of slides. I'll keep it brief. All about what my opinion is a false dichotomy when it comes to research, as if they're on sort of two different places when I think they should be intimately linked. All the raw research objectives, the team formation, and early tribal interaction. For the we'll talk about community-based participatory research. Go through again. We'll talk about specific techniques used to do this work, including the use of video, and then I can show a bit about the video and should have measured its impact and it's folded back as a tool into our research and into our attempts to publish. We'll show a little bit of the data from the rancher and farmer and analysis, just like to show you how you can sort of contrast between the different groups, ways to show data in context. Wrap up by talking about what I think is important but often left out of the process, which is once you create videos, once you've created papers, once you've been through all the different institutional review boards that the tribes and your own universities may have, then you end the project in such a way that it continues to be a fair endeavor for the tribes. In other words, how they review it, options to be partners on public, etc. So how to make sure that their future work together does a positive note, and briefly mention a new opportunity we have what sprung from this. This is part of a long process. It goes over years, not just something to sort of run out with a video camera and do, or run out with a survey and do. It's done in a month. So here, the photography of Nevada. You can see it's based on range, based in topography, and rugged in most parts, down to Las Vegas and the valley. But if you go to the north, it's a really majestic country. Two of the we're talking about today are Summit Lake Tribe. They're up near the California and Nevada border. Some of you heard of Burning. You have to sort of travel that way and up through the mountains. It's about 6 hours from Reid to Imply Towers to make it up to Summit Lake. And if you don't, you'll get about 4 hours in, and then you get to camp out there until someone rescues you, I guess, because it's a lot of obsidian and the road that flakes your tires up. And then the Pyramid Lake tribe, the Paiute tribe living in Pyramid Lake, the circling, that is only maybe a half an hour out of Sparks Reno area. Okay, I'll mark on this map where areas where tribes are located. Really difficult to find good where tribes are, so we have to make our own. Dr. Brown, I believe that they prefer I take questions after discussion for about 30 minutes. Raise your hand. I'll try to go to that list of questions when I'm done and take Q&A in any other way that Dr. Brown likes me to. A little bit of data here. So until we're going through in Nevada, mean temperature. So you've really been on a steep incline in terms of temperature. We've all declined in precipitation. So I can request when you're working in Las Vegas that Nevada, Las Vegas, this is where I had my previous appointment, and you get requests to go stand on top of a dock that used to have wood under it, and now they can see the shrinking, and you can see the bathtub rings all around it. So it attracts a lot of attention, and now you can see the precip is dropping across the state in general, temperature getting hotter. So now, Nevada, in case you're familiar with it. So me here, I this, and I make myself for being so honest as I often do on, but I've entered jobs, and I've people say to me, "Well, do you want to do research? You know, is it an institution in your mind or a research institution?" I set my mind around how it's one or the other. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. To me, I think successful in the regard has been the integration of teaching and research together. Integrate students and letting our students get opportunities to teach what they learn, and then teach beyond the university to informal institutions, which I'll talk later, and spread what we're able to produce. See, Ahmad, a prominent student in the research that was done, and this is a situation which descended from the project, which is not certainly a unique thing that we were doing based on sponsored research. Continue that story. Sorry for using something so personal, but myself, and my students, one who finished his PhD, went on to University of Michigan to do a postdoc, and another doing an IGRT fellowship. That the research and the teaching work together, and in which you learn back to the classroom in the form of papers and in form of doing presentations and taking over the classroom. And so I just see some of my students, and also I think to give credit for the hard work they've done. And on here you'll see one of our other students, Tricia Minster, who may or may not right now, in part based on the research of Ahmad, which Ahmad brought to class, and so it should be linked over time. Here's Ahmad this past year, actually, and giving a talk to graduate students, talking about some experiences. So carrying this outside the classroom is important. So I want to know a little bit about the broad research objectives and early tribal interactions that we had. A lot of people jump into the I did a survey, here's the data, and that type of thing. But my opinion is that when you're working with the tribes, and I do the tribes in other parts of the world, and for example, in Asia, just above Papua New Guinea, they're there, of course. But I think whenever you're working across cultures, how to approach the research project at the beginning is extremely important, that you approach people with respect, with mutual respect, and with an understanding that they know things too, and that you have as well as talk. I think when you go to work with the tribes and you have a prepackaged agenda, let me from the Native American tribes for a second to make it less personal. Say that, for example, when I work in the Pacific on small islands, people show up there and they got money, and they say, "I'll do a project." And the NGO, like the NGO I work with, Conservation Society of Pohnpei, they say, like to do a project. Well, it's very difficult to turn the project down if you're going to provide some funding. But by putting that forward first, it's very to find out what people's little priorities are, what's important to them. To really partners, like your partners have to buy into the process. You have to learn what's important to them, approach them, and at least that their culture says appropriate, and they said it can include institutional review boards held by tribes. It took a year and a half, 2 years to get to the point we could actually start getting into research with the tribes. To do national meetings, email with the tribe, go and present in front of their government and get permission again, and so it's a process, and I think that's important in writing about and with our colleagues in the papers. We work with an intertribal council because we explore around the whole state of Nevada, which is very large. So this is to talk to the leadership of different tribes across the state. Individual tribes for more focused work, Pyramid Lake and Summit Lake being the ones you know of. So environmentalists from across the state for the tribes, Summit, Pyramid Lake, also Fort McDermott to a certain extent. Understanding the literature. We have Carletta Chief, who is Navajo. She joined us, but that is an important reason that's effective in helping us do work. So, tribal researcher who grew up in Navajo, tries to get herself a PhD out of, I think, Stanford, Arizona, and I'll talk about her later. We also money. I say we. I mean the people who ran the larger project the grant was attached to. Or a sub-project to work on vulnerability to water at Pyramid Lake under climate change. Again, a state, 4 to 8 inches of rain a year, very drier and hotter. People learn about their water supply, and there's a lot of competition for water. This was identified by the tribe, not us. I think that's important. A little bit about the lab we set up, how we set up our labs to be able to do multidisciplinary work, which is simply seen was not so easy to put together of where the trees across the state. On you for the final time, the location Pyramid Lake and Summit Lake, which faces some images from Fort McDermott. One issue for our work was to create a diagram, and I'm not going to, you can take a breath because I'm not going to actually walk you through this entire diagram. Showing you this diagram was just to show you how we can work and figure out how the tribes were related to each other, and you would have in a water scarce area like Nevada, and tribes that this would be sort of well-worn ground, but it wasn't. So we had this basic ethnographic work to understanding. Pyramid in the bottom right, and the meeting house, where we our preliminary meetings or need to do the research with the group that I put together. And you can see Carletta Chief here. Here we have a powwow where we were invited after putting out 2.5 years of work. Was enough reputation to actually start to be invited by tribes to go talk. For example, powwow, and we're doing what I consider sort of education, a form of education. We're able to put surveys, and so we use our research. So again, everything's linked together. The research and teaching are linked together. And when you go out and spend time meeting people in person instead of just sitting top the entire time, good things can happen. This is just a picture of Carletta. Other persons she found herself to be related to distantly. They were just at the powwow. So these personal connections, if you spend an effort, a lot of money traveling, a lot of time traveling, not always quantitative to produce when you immediately start, but it pays off, in my opinion. It's extended 4 years of serious research. The rest more wrap up. This image here because it speaks to what's going on in rural Nevada when it comes to natural resources, climate change, water resources in general, and the tribes and ranching farmer communities. This, which used to be smaller, is hot spring, and here has widened it really wide. Now they're getting into the stream and eating species of dace. All the horses are being run down here close to the bank, and there's the vegetation denuded here. So erosion. So this sort of thing. The rancher also this spring put concrete around the sacred hot spring, making it literally into a hot tub of sorts, which you my website. This is if you know that you just wouldn't know if you didn't do field work, if you didn't get out there and you weren't a tribal member or little areas. And I don't mean to stereotype ranchers by one really negative example, but I can order on what I see, and this is one of the things we saw in our study area. Because there's people that we farming and ranching with good intentions as well. Okay, so let's talk now about context. It was based in community-based participatory research. That's cool, but C is a style of research. Not research, and some other fancy words for it that assume a certain approach to people. That, like we said earlier, that you're going to time building relationships, that you're interested in doing preliminary work to see what your partner's needs are, to invite enough stage that their opinion matters instead of just sort of doing all the work and then asking them to bless it, to having during the course of your work. Sort of take the data and then go away with it. And it's in a black box. And in fact, the video allowed us to help them be engaged in a way they could speak in their own first person, not me, not through anybody else. And so here you see pictures of Summit Lake and some of the fishing that was going on there. I think that a marked way to let trouble have avoided impact of climate change. Others judge whether they find true to say or not, whether they have the same opinion or don't. But to be unfiltered, to be able to speak for yourself is important. And paper sometimes, part of the editing process. The editors of journals will tell you what you can and can't keep a lot of times. Review really hard about that. But in the freedom, community-based participatory research, the literature on that, you can email me for it, but I just don't have time to get into the details of it today. Okay. So in terms of techniques, there are a lot of techniques that we use. Statistical analysis, that in the literature. So we did a lot of work on what broader literature was to help design our survey so that we ask the same questions sometimes as what other literature asked, and therefore we can compare our results to theirs. So across the nation, across tribes, or across stakeholder groups. So we did ranchers and farmers. We did a general population survey, which is areas. We did a survey focused on businesses, NGOs, and government, energy purveyors, water purveyors. Some things could be the same, so we could compare across groups. Some same as big, like the food surveys and others out there. So we compare across the other literature that have been done in years, and to have a broader impact for your work. Instead of just report results, you can report your results in relation to other results across the world. This is, in our case, allows us to sort of have an anatomy, climate change perception across the state of Nevada. A lot of the surveys we're doing, we're asking about climate perception. What do you think the impacts are? When do you might be? What do you think the causes are? What policies might you support for adaptation to change if it's occurring? Demographic information too, of course. Gender, age, partition, etc. So you can do different types of statistical analysis. So that's important. Annual meetings with leadership, like the environmental leaders, serve as well. Focus groups where we sort of did focus groups and presenting, allow two-way flow of information really enough that it would actually matter with the tribe. And this video, and here you can see Mr. Williams. Now he's that I think is really good. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Program has a program where they can allow members to go back and work on this because they're employees of U.S. Wildlife, work with the tribes come from. So grew up as a trapper, going with a lot of professional training and working on specifically the hunting cutthroat health. And you can hear in the building that we worked at where we're doing fish counts and fishing, filming the fish underwater. How do you use this video? How do you use the papers that come with it? Well, it might not be shown sort of it needs to be situated within the literature. So if I'm teaching, I would take these as a research, maybe as a section in my political environment class, or depending on what discipline you're in, you'll call it different things. So there's no need to. For example, in political ecology, I might look at environmental justice issues, or I might look at indigenous issues, or look at critical analysis, the next of climate change and culture, or I may make it part of an indigenous people section. Make sure you surround the video and other reasons is really important to be able to write essays that this literature and situate the video and other content with literature. If that, then you do just teaching them facts or ideas memorized, and then link that to other things, connect that to the larger world around them. This is trying to make a strong case. It already is a strong case that is an environmental justice piece. So that's another dimension there. If you take people who are historically disadvantaged, removed from their home territories, statistics show that they have lower income, formal education, even though very high level formal education. And for cities, clearly people are going to be more vulnerable. The water grants that are going on now, as water becomes in greater demand, scarce. It's really the justice piece that comes out of this. I'll let people speak for themselves. My video is good. I think it's important that you be really explicit about using to evaluate this. Sometimes you get in trouble in the classroom when the students can't figure out which opinion and which literature that they just read. And I keep it as really important. In this case, what's the groups are talking here on the video. I don't think it can be too much proselytizing. I think you have to let people think for themselves. I was just integrated with papers that we're working on right now. Most of them submitted. So I would suggest telling the students the context of the problem in the broadest sense. I've always done that will help with that. And to write down what they think they will hear and why. So that's what they're considering and what they can the situation around versus what they find it to actually be when they hear the people talk. Also, that they can have them discuss their expectations in the context of what they did hear into a paper. Depending on the group, it may be a short paper, a long paper, etc. So for helping me clarify some of these ideas, by the way. So a minute of the video, but you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, the indigenous fishing method here, knocking back and forth to scare the fish downstream, and then to net them. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Now, in order to collect statistics on this, what I do is I got a guest page set up. You go into, those of you who have seen the video know this already. You put in, your efficient, etc. What's it for? What's the purpose? All that it's fed to me and an email like this. The audience, account, etc., etc. So then fold the results of who's watching this video back into your research. So from research, education, back into. I'll not show you a bunch of video. I do want you to at least see this is Pyramid Lake. And I'm not showing you I am showing you the video, but not having to the audio, so that I narrate over this. This is Summit Lake. And this video, there are some formal questions asked, and in the studio, I think also being students, this is something that could William Cohen, Mr. William Cohen, on nesting trout and examining the health of the trout, some water video that we took, and you also see the water landscape. And I think when you're showing video that the imagery matters, partly because there's something to learn about formations and water formations, but also partly because it's really inspiring to see the land and waterscape. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful to see. And so I have to say that I personally feel really thankful for the opportunity to see going on, to see landscape and waterscape, and I understand why this is such, I can't find a better than spiritual. Spiritual important to others, why their feelings are so deep, and you'll see that and share with you a couple of slides. You can see Mr. Cowan speaking for himself. I think that's important. He's just open-ended questions between boy and growing up and learning how the trout numbers are going down, what's it about it. They're on this discussion segment to climate change discussion and how much impact things like the headwaters that the trout run up and down are really, really small, so the ones you saw fishing. So if trees dry up around them and you get too hot, trout in those small streams, will the breeze gone, or you can cause the stream to fill in? And these are the questions that are really important to our partners, because if the stream goes, the trout may go, and if the trout goes, there goes pins, to their culture. That affects their culture. So they're interested in the climate change discussion because they're interested in the trout, because they're interested in this, what you see here, this beautiful land of them and their ancestors. And here's a hot spring that you see running, a secret hot spring. And there's the lake. So, going back to the video, I'll show you that image, but I don't want to go on it too long, and I want to leave time for questions. So another 5-10 minutes, and then we'll open up the question. Here's that headwater that I'm talking about, the small stream and the trout moving up it in the yellow circle. I can tell you all this travel costs a lot of money. That can be a problem, but if you have a good local partner, the same as Micronesia, then you can send them out with the camera and the video recording, whatever else. It's important to promote your work and get it out there. That's part of what we're doing today, I guess. We want to highlight for this video. It was shown for a month at Springs Preserve, which is a really super, super nice sustainability museum, which is in Vegas. If you're in Vegas, please pry yourself away from the strip into Springs Preserve. It's amazing. Talks architecture and traditional ways of living in the desert, using less energy and less water. It's something to behold. Has been approved by the tribes. Part of that research we were talking about. They approve before it goes out. They approve the interviews. They approve the papers. And if something sensitive comes up, choosing between what you think you have to, as a person in academia, present, and also not offending your partners can be a difficult choice. You don't have a magic wand to make that problem go away sometimes. I didn't do much, but I could see how there might be things that you would want to share because it's important from a research standpoint, but that might be sensitive. This has to be worked out before you do the research, so there's no hard feelings and feels like they were taken advantage of. And there's a history of people, academia, and government taking advantage of tribes. Okay, so interviewed. Well, and then who watched our video? Well, you can see who was interviewed: the tribes, researchers, students. When you see the statistics for it, there'll be about half of what they YouTube, because every about 8 months we have over 1,200 hits. But YouTube's still showing don't show my statistics on the guest book, so that all the numbers you see will be about half of what really it is. Also, that is, as a professor video to 30 people, it's going to show up on my statistics like you showed it once. So the stats for this are a lot higher than you might think. To make some sense, I can clarify later if you want. Here, take that educational outreach, which can be used in classrooms and can be used in informal education, and put it back into your research. Analyst book. Here you can see where this was shown. For there, I had an amazing amount of viewers in post-Cold West Africa. I thought that was fascinating. I could see it spreading geographically sometimes. You can see by continents. So, show views per capita, right? If I did that per capita, it might be a different figure. Fairly even distribution between male and female. You look at viewer affiliation that you use. There are about 62 of those. And then Reid had a big increase in tribes, so I think this is higher if I measure this right now, but it's what it is. I did this some weeks ago. Tribe users, general public, U.S. federal government. A lot of people using U.S. federal government using this to prepare. They wrote to me. They used to prepare because they're about to start working with tribes, and they wanted to learn how to do culturally appropriate work with the tribes, which I hope this is. Internationalizations, which if they show it, then it spreads out to others. All showings at Springs Preserve do not show up in statistics I show it. They showed for a month. And yourself, so I don't sort of need the details. This is just, there's nothing particularly new here. Universities and the tribes follow as well. Same stats in different ways, so I don't want to keep on over this. Community, if you want to be viewing it and you want to see, well, you know, or had a PhD, or how many people were, how many people were members, how many media. So, like for example, this is in Spain on TV. It was Spanish producers showed it on TV there. It's also shown elsewhere in Europe, and I believe it was. So it showed viewers. So again, it's just a formal education, going out, branching out to other people in different parts of the world. But I can only like those hits, and I have a really interesting story. But you can see it can be helpful. It's pretty much the same thing. I'll show this to you because it's pretty much the same thing in a different format. Purpose. Okay. So research and education. Not yet. Professional training. Interest. This is the same thing. Pie graph. Research and education and personal interest. If I aggregate education research, 38 for teaching, and other interests, presumably research or lab work, to do research in the field. So I'll show you an example of how you can start to take the data from our surveys that we did, from the field work we did. Real quickly, the green dots are where we got rancher farmer responses. The dot, the more the responses. These different groups like environmental managers, ranchers and farmers, the tribes. I have a complicated stuff than this, but I just don't have time to show it to you, so I'm showing you simple things. Comparational levels, right? T-test, which type of statistical analysis, which helps if different groups have slightly different views or not on the same topic, right? So if we had we ask some questions and we give them a choice to rank things. 1, strongly agree, 2, disagree, 3, not decided, 4, 5, strongly agree. Hopefully that question connects back in literature about other places, and people were asked similar questions, and it's the same question that can be used also for different groups. We can compare across them, like the following, where you see that the ranchers Americans have very different type of questions. So this is a question we asked Pyramid Lake tribes, ranchers and farmers. We asked them, do you have climate change or not? And from looking at these numbers, that stronger belief that we are by tribal members than we are by farmers and ranchers. Up on bar graphs here, like for example here, about the belief. People recognize there's a drought, and our statistics bear that assumption out. But the question is, where does the drought come from? Is it climate change, or is it just natural variability? And so you see in these graphs here in the blue, the ranchers and farmers believe, for example, you see that ranchers and farmers, 26.1% believe that the drought is being caused by climate change. Over half of the Pyramid Lake members believe that it's being caused by climate change. You can compare these different things. The production of greenhouse gases. The tribals have double the amount of tribal members believe greenhouse gases are major of climate change. So you can pull this apart. Again, complicated things, but in the interest, it's going to occur. Is it going to occur now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, whenever? So the Lake tribal member now, 51% tribal, the impact will be now. Ranchers and farmers, 27% now. The timing of climate change is different. The cause is different. The impact is different. Right? So who's going to be impacted? The dark means a great deal, and the lighter the blue means you're getting closer to not at all. If we see around 30% of tribal members right here, personally. If you look where I'm circling, you're looking at 13% of the ranchers and farmers believe personally. Look at this shape. So, the closer you are to them, their family, their tradition, the impact, generally speaking, of climate change. Whereas for those farmers, they don't believe that future generations or other plants and species or people in parts of the world will be impacted. But the closer, so again, all statistically significant effect, female ranchers and farmers were relatively more concerned regarding the adverse impacts of climate change than male counterparts. Republican, that type of thing. I'm coming here, last couple slides. So one thing you can do is also qualitative analysis. Not everything has to be a statistic, that's for sure. So I had a section in a paper I wrote recently called God, Fraud, and Gore. Where they sort of go off about Gore, even though he was in office for a long time, and to see God as important, and he has a plan. And in fact, for you to assume, and you can see the quote yourself, for you to assume you could change his plan is so much. Right? I resent the arrogance of the politically powerful and highly educated who think that may in charge of the destiny of the earth. Right? The good Lord give us rain when we need it. Don't worry so much. So the reason not to do something about climate change is God. Compare the opposite, right? The call is God is to take action. God, our land, we need to hold it sacred and take care of it and fight to protect our environment. We need to be respectful of all life, including Mother Earth. Right? Young and old still participate in ceremonies which our ancestors still have created for us. So what do we learn? We learn that you continue to protect the environment, to make sacrifices, and you see this in the percentage of people who support climate change policies. Areas, doing much than the rancher areas. It's their responsibility. God is the reason to do something, not the reason not to do something. And trust, you can. This is a tribes. Strongly trust, or most of somewhat trust. Scientists. To look at local government, the numbers really go down. So I think that the tribal members, at least in my experience, if you're and you treat them as people who have knowledge to share too, they have trust in researchers that a lot of them collaborate if the rules are followed. Today, I want to say that right now I'm co-publishing articles with the tribal members, together with them, which we won money from the USGS, and it continues. And I like to think it's positive side. With this tapestry, a picture taken at Pyramid Lake, I have all my email address here, and I'm going to say thank you for your patience as I work through these slides. And thank you to Dr. Haddon, all the others, and yourself for taking time. Video on.
Thanks for that. Dr. Smith.
I don't see the chat questions. If there's any chat questions, I'm not seeing them.
See any yet?
Okay. If you do, please read them to me. I can't see them on my screen.
Yes. Top center of your screen with the little drop-down tab. Click on chat. It'll show for you.
Yeah, my screen more. So, okay. More. So I'm going to have to take questions without anything. I think it would be hard. I'm not seeing all the things I used to see, but I hear you. So if there's questions, I can still answer them.
I don't see questions, so I think I can go ahead and end the webinar. Thank everyone who attended today, and this resource can be found on the CAMEL site, and this actual webinar was recorded and it will be archived and will be on the site in a few days. And thank everyone for attending, and we will have another webinar next Tuesday, 3 o'clock, same place, same time.
Okay.
Thank you much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ken Ma. I Ken Ma's message. Thank you. Take care.